Hello, Jesus friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor Janice, and in today's video, I am going to be expounding more on what I was talking about last week with discipline and motivation. Now, if you hear me driving, I am driving. In this week's video, I just want to be heard. I don't necessarily feel like I need to be seen. I just want to express some things that goes more into detail about discipline when you don't have motivation. You know, what happens when motivation ends, right? What do you do? What happens? What's going on? And I just want to keep y'all in the loop of stuff. I do apologize. I did not post a video last week, but I'm going to be getting back to my regularly scheduled program, so please just bear with me. So again, I am driving because when I talk, in driving, I think better. I don't know, when I'm rolling in the car, I can think a whole lot better, so my train of thought is not thrown off. So expounding, let's just get right into it. I want to expound more on last week's video, right? About what happens when, motivation ends. Discipline has to rise up when motivation steps down, right? So today, literally just now, I made myself read Psalm 119 because I've just been in this headspace where I've just been procrastinating and I've just been plain out lazy, right? And I was watching to get a sermon in and to get some God time in, because I have not been spending time with God as I know I need to be, because that's just a crucial part of being in our walk with God, right? Spending time with God, that's part of the relationship, right? So as I was watching a Transformation Church sermon, and it was about, it's called The Paradox of Purpose. If you have not seen it, I would advise you check it out because it's really good, and the stuff they're talking about, they just hit the nail on the head every single time. So in this particular sermon, it's Pastor Charles Metcalf, or however you say his last name. I don't know. I apologize for saying it wrong. But he talks about how, in there, we give the enemy way too much credit. And I definitely agree, because within, these last couple of weeks, I haven't been feeling like seeking God and stuff like that. I haven't felt motivated to seek God or whatever, right? And so my immediate reaction to me not feeling like seeking God is, it must be the devil. The devil is, trying to, I'm in spiritual warfare. We automatically blame it on being in spiritual warfare. And he was saying, we give the enemy too much credit, and we definitely do give the enemy way too much credit. He is not in our head. He can plant things in our head, but he don't know our actual thoughts. He don't know our plans and stuff. If we don't say certain things out loud, he don't know our thoughts and our plans. And so I was immediately wanting to blame the enemy for distracting me, when that does not come from that. The enemy doesn't distract me. We give the enemy way too much power, and I feel like that's why the enemy feels like he's powerful, because we give him that power. We say he can do these things that he really cannot do. I just think about it because I'm in the middle of a Bible plan, And it talks about how, I'm in Job. The Bible plan has Job in there. And in the book of Job, if you all are familiar with the book of Job, Job was upright and a just man. And he had all this farm animals. He was living the dream pretty much. He had everything anybody could ever want because he was such a just man. And he had such a fear and reverence for God and everything like that, God rewarded him for his works. And y'all remember when the angels was going up to the Lord to give report, and the devil had to ask. Well, the devil kind of dared God. He was like, I bet you if you curse Job, he'll or if you take these things away from Job will curse you to your face. And so God had so much faith in Job that Job would not curse him, that God gave the enemy permission to strike his farm animals, his livestock, to strike his children, to take these things that made him a man pretty much away, to see what Job would do. So it's like even the enemy had to give report to God on what he was doing and had to ask permission. And God told him, see, you can take these things away from him, but one thing you can't take is Job's life. Like, if the enemy was so powerful, he would be able to do those things without God's permission, right? So that just put things in perspective. Like, we definitely give the enemy way too much credit. He is not as powerful as we make him out to be at all. He is not a powerful man at all. He's a weak, sorry punk who wants the power that God upholds. If God wasn't so powerful, and this is why sometimes I don't understand people who don't believe in God. This is the part where I don't understand, because if God is not real, and if he's not who he says he is, why do people want the power that God has if he's not real? If he's not real, why do y'all want all the power that God has? Why do you copy off of what God does if he's not so powerful? That's why I think, some people who say they don't believe in God, I feel like they were just extremely hurt. They're going through an extreme hurt, and they don't know how to handle that hurt. And so they just say, it's easier to say, oh, well, it's not real anyway. It's easy to just downplay something than it is to admit that it's real, or so on and so forth, right? So that's besides the point. But, the enemy is not as powerful as we give him. We give him that power. That's why he feel like he can come to us any kind of way. That's why he feel like he can outsmart us, because anytime something is not going in the direction that we feel it should be going, we're automatically going to say, well, that's the enemy. The enemy does not have no power at, well, I don't want to say no power, but he doesn't have that much power. If he can plant something in your head and make you believe it and keep you in a cycle, that's a powerful thing to do, to attack somebody's mindset. That's the only thing he can do. He can't read your mind. He can't do any of that, but he can plant seeds in your head. So, but yeah, and I've noticed that's what I've been doing. And instead of taking accountability and responsibility for you as a grown person, you would rather blame the enemy. And that's a lot of people in the church. Instead of taking responsibility for our actions and thinking, oh, well, our actions led to this consequence, our laziness led to this, our procrastination led to this, we would rather blame the enemy instead of taking accountability for our actions. Sometimes it's not the enemy that is doing these things. If you don't prepare for a test, and if you don't study for a test, is that the enemy's fault that you fail, or is it that your fault that you didn't study? It's easier to blame the enemy. We blame the enemy out of convenience. we blame the enemy out of convenience, because then it takes the heat off of our back, and that's not how God works. We have to take accountability and responsibility for our own actions. It is not the enemy all the time when you're getting attacked. If you're doing something you know you're not supposed to be doing, and you reap the benefit of that consequence, whether it's good or bad, because it ain't a benefit, that is not the enemy's fault. Just like if you do what you're supposed to be doing and you reap the benefit of that action, it's not the enemy's fault then when it's good. So why is it the enemy's fault when it's bad? You know what I mean? And so discipline, what does any of this have to do with discipline? You have to keep going no matter what, because if you slip, if you procrastinate, if you do not, if you wait on motivation, if you are lazy, then the attacks that happen to you is not the enemy's fault. It is your own, because you were not disciplined enough to do what you know you need to do. And the only way that you can keep the enemy off your back, well, the enemy is always going to be on your back. He's always going to attack. So let me not, put that false narrative out there. The enemy is always going to attack, because that's just who he is. He hates greatness. He wants everybody to be casted into the pit of hell along with him, right? So that's going to happen. The attacks are going to happen, but you can always be well prepared by remaining disciplined. You're not always going to feel like reading your Bible, but it's that discipline that says, okay, yeah, I need to crack open that book. You're not always going to feel like doing the right thing, but it's that discipline that, let me do this. Let me do something that other people don't do. Let me do something that people don't have to see me doing. You know what I mean? You don't need to be seen to do the right thing. You don't need to be heard to do the right thing. Just do the right thing, because it's discipline and it's what God is calling us to be anyway. Motivation is not always going to be there. How many people, how do you get the body that you want if you're not motivated? Because you're disciplined. Sometimes those people, and I talk about that because that's a journey that I'm on. Being disciplined to exercise and eat right and do the right thing, even when I don't feel like it, But besides that, how do you think people who get the body they've always desired get the body they always desire? Because they go even when they don't feel. When that motivation slips away, they still push through and say, hey, I know I owe it to myself to do this, that, and the third, so let me go ahead and do it despite of what I feel. That's discipline. That's not motivation. And I feel like in today's society, we're sold this false narrative of having to have motivation. You are not always going to be motivated to do something, like temptation, for instance. When you have those certain desires, sexual desires, let's go ahead and talk about it. When you have certain sexual desires, your body's going to crave sex, right? So when you have those desires, it's not your motivation that's going to keep you from acting on those desires. It's going to be your discipline that's going to keep you. And the society has just always told us that you need to be motivated, have that motivation, but motivation ends. Discipline doesn't end, though. And so I almost equate that for joy and happiness. Happiness is dependent upon what makes you happy. Like if you're hungry and you eat food, you're happy after you eat food. But joy is something that whether you have food or not, you always are joyous. You're not always going to be happy, but you're always going to be joyous. The same thing with motivation and discipline. You're not always going to be motivated, but you can always be disciplined if you allow yourself to be disciplined. And this is something that I am working on, so this is why I'm talking about it. and stuff. But we as a whole, especially as Christians, need to stop with the motivation stuff. You're not going to feel motivated all the time. And so when you don't feel motivated, then what you gonna do? What if you don't feel motivated for 6 months and you know there's something that you need to do business wise, but you have no motivation for it? Then what? And you haven't built any discipline. Then what happens? You know what happens? You done lost 6 months of time because you were waiting to be motivated. If you wait to be motivated, your dreams will never happen. And so that's all I wanted to touch on today. Like, don't wait to be motivated. Don't let the society think that you have to be motivated. We are called to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We're not called to be conformed to this world. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's what Romans tells us. That's what Paul tells us in Romans. That's why I like Paul, because he's a relatable guy. And so, yeah, you're not going to feel motivated all the time, but you can be disciplined. You can learn to start disciplining yourself so that when motivation slips, discipline steps up. And so, yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. I'll be getting to my regularly scheduled program next week, so y'all just bear with me, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace.